More Guardian's Barrier already placed. Hard guard, they're fighting under the turret with nowhere to go. Bruin's gonna be taken out, and now Swag Boy trying to hold down the front, stealing those shields. Won't be enough though, as he's taken down. Was looking for Gunk, and now here comes Shanks. He's gonna fight off with Killer Wayne, but will back off. They lost Pimp My World, and here comes to the fight Diablo to keep them in the front. But still, not much more they can get here. Lord was already dealt with, so right now Djibouti does a decent job at holding on. Turret's gonna fall, hard guard gonna be used, the combination! The Shaw Essence will come up to clean up the kill.
Well played, Diablo. Game number 1, match number 1 against Mali. He did the dirty work. Now he's the one enjoying the game. Clean up crew, Diablo and Yakuza with the package of that hard guard. And that's 2 tier 2s that he's able to take in the 12th minute of the game. In the bottom lane, I was, kind of stunned there because actually, wow, Brun was able to clear out that wave. Pimp My World still hovering, has the wild charge. Seems they want to go for this.
Oh, how many times is Killerwayne gonna get away with that? This is time and time again, utilizing the fracture all the time. And it's just now they're going to make a play around Pimp My World once again. And this is troublesome. Dexter here. Hard guard going to be used. Gets trapped with the Guardian's Barrier. The placements of these walls have been on point from Pimp My World.
21 kills in 12 minutes from a single team. Usually we see 21 kills in total in the game in 12 minutes. And so far, Senegal have been able to layer out their damage and their CC so well. Always the wild charge combined with the fracture. If it's not combined with the fracture, it's combined together with a synchro vision, a furious dive, and a petrify. So many different ways to combo out, and especially here in the mid game, you can definitely see Swag Boy start to struggle, right? I was mentioning it earlier, but these anti-region items, man, the Dominance Ices have been able to nail him down completely. He's been able to get the shields, but not enough to really survive the damage output that Senegal can throw at him. And this is where the big problem comes down for Djibouti in the mid game. Senegal have so much more damage to play with, so much more utility, and so much more CC. Even Brun, he gets a time journey off, but if he dies, that time journey is gone. And Dexter,
oh, Dexter has to get the times journey out, gonna fight in with the penalty zone. They're fighting under everything they can, but Dexter will fall. Rest of the team gonna try to make their way. Kilwayne could be in trouble, gets caught down from Nightcrawler, 2 down from Senegal. Dragon Form gonna be used by Diablo, trying to force a back Swag. Guardian's Bearer already gonna be utilized, but they don't have enough damage to fight the fight, as Pimp My World will fall in front of them. And Djibouti just turned things around.
that's how you win for Djibouti. Dexter needs to bait out all these resources. Once you do, Brun is so free to go for that time journey. And if the time journey does, stay for a long time, you can use it for its full duration. You get so much value, and they still want to go for more on Diablo.
Oh, Diablo could be in trouble here. Falling Starman was going to be used. Swag Boy gets the kill. And Swag Boy, this is looking a lot like the Swag Boy we saw yesterday. Mirko, Eternal Guard, going to stop them in their tracks as the tier 2 in the mid lane goes down. And now Senegal finds themselves in a defense mode, getting prepped and ready for the Lord on top.
Oh, man. Such a good game by Djibouti now. They were able to somehow weather the storm in that mid game, and still in the mid game, just through a little bit of an adjustment of how they execute in these team fights. Dexter standing in front, baiting out all these resources, doing what Diablo did to Mali, being the guy who goes in with a penalty zone to bait out these resources. And once all those resources have been depleted, Swag Boy comes in. The time journey as well gives him sustain, and there's another skirmish.
They want to fight it out once again, trying to hold on to the turret. Penalty zone going to be used. Zalman Force already dropped 2. Everyone fighting under the Lord. Dexter's going to be the first to fall. Heart Guard going to be used as well. Diablo gets a huge knockup with a Furious Dive and the Petrify combo. Still forcing Djibouti back. Another winning fight for Senegal so far. As they get another body down, Bruin will fall, and it's only Swag Boy left alone to his own devices. But it's a wipeout from Senegal.
Well played to Senegal. Another adjustment. We were talking about how Djibouti's been able to adjust, and Senegal do the same thing. They know that Dexter wants to take all these resources onto him, wants to soak in all this damage. That's why he's been stepping up so far ahead. And Senegal, they just wait in the back, wait for all these resources to be used up to initiate, and then those saved up resources, those big ultimates gets used up in towards the backline. Brun, with the time journey, wasn't able to get the full duration on that. And even Shanks, at this point, he's really struggling to deal damage. At this point, for Djibouti, their main damage source has got to be Swag Boy, because he's the only one who can get through the shielding coming in from Senegal. They're so sustainable with the shielding. And on top of that, we've got to give Yakuza a whole lot of credit. The spacing from this guy in the fights and then going in with a hard guard, just healing the entire team. I don't know what it is. Maybe Senegal are just in sync, because the healing has been able to get almost everyone. Those love waves have been AoEing so well to the rest of the members, not just the guy he's on. And now Nightcrawler as well gets the Blood Wings. That's going to give him a little bit more of that sustainability, more of that survivability in these skirmishes. Glad to see these items popped up as well. Sea Halberd going to be picked up by Shanks. That's his only way right now to actually go through the shields. We were talking about how they needed to go through the shields and how only Swag Boy has been able to do that. And now technically with the Sea Halberd, you do have a little bit more to say about that. But still, overwhelming amount of sustain. The Sea Halberd, I think it gets him closer, but he's still gonna have to come in as the executor. He needs to be on that gun form for the most part, and then he has to wait for Swag Boy to deal the damage. First, like and pounce.
Oh, but the return fracture again from Killuane. The time's journey was too late. Pimp My World just pimped their world.
Oh, you might want to go for more Black Dragon form.
I think they do. Again, Harkar going to be used. Dragon Form going to force them back. 4 members left of Djibouti. Can they survive? Defensive penalty zone going to be used, but gets crashed down. It's Brune once again. Immortality going to be popped. Gets closed off from the Guardian's barrier as he falls under the turret. And that's the go signal for Senegal to take this Lord.
And it's an evolved Lord. 29-12. We've had so many kills, so many skirmishes, but now we've gone to a point where it's going to be an evolved Lord. Imagine this, so much sustain with the Yuzong, the Angela, the Harith as well. On top of that, the damage reduction if they continue to play with the Evolved Lord that they are going to take. So Djibouti, they have more problems stacked against them at this point. If Senegal can form a 3-way push towards the base of Djibouti and play around that Evolved Lord, this honestly might be the end. They might only need just one wave with that big Lord to go for the final push of the game.
Man, this is the thing. This is like, if you're Djibouti and you want to actually survive this game, you have to not get picked off by Killuane. This has happened time and time again. And as long as they stay healthy and keep all their members alive, they should be able to defend. Conceal play going to be used. Pimp My World once again finds the Guardian Barrier. Wild charge. Gets Brute. Gets the Time's Journey out. That's exactly what they wanted. Dragon Form going to be used. They know they have the information they need. Still holding on. Yakuza already using that Heart Guard. Pushing them back even further. They want to fight it out under the base. Dexter's in trouble as he's going to be the first to fall. And now the rest of the team trying to hold it together. But look at Swag Boy just take it out in an instant. And Lord still up. 1 hit away. But the team falling apart in the base. They're defending though. The flicker from Shanks keeping them alive. They have to work on the base. Killuane 1 hit away as well. But the crystal is going to be worked on. And Senegal will take game number 1.
It's already disgusting that they have that much sustain to play with. The Yuzong, the Hard Guard, the Love Waves. And on top of that, the Harith with the constant shielding he gets with the dash and the Zaman Force. And then you add a damage reduction of that Evolved Lord. I said it might as well be that final push if they're able to utilize it properly. And they kind of did, right? They had the 3 waves. And that initiation with the barrier delayed the Lord enough for the other waves to come crashing down into the base turret, making it a forced error to Djibouti. I think Djibouti, they had the right idea. They tried to delay the Lord from, pushing into the base together with the other waves in the side lanes, but they got caught off guard by the Guardian's barrier. And with that wild charge, they baited the biggest ability, the ability they could actually turn the tides for Djibouti. It's that time journey. Without the time journey, in that skirmish, there's a bit too much CC, there's a bit too much damage that you cannot really deal with, right? That time journey, not only has it been amazing with the anti-CC to get them out of these big engages with the Furious Time and the Petrifying, the wild charges, but mainly, I would say it has been able to give them enough sustain with the added shielding that you get with the time journey. So, big resource spent. Wild charge for time journey is definitely, a good trade, a very good trade. I think Senegal are very, very happy with that, and that's why they were able to just go for the base straight up. With the Evolved Lord, they got them all so low, and a big shout out to Gunked for knowing that there was a window of opportunity. Just go for the base. Pops into the Savant Force. Doesn't care if he dies. Doesn't care if he's in the front lines. As long as he taps the turret lock button, he should be good. He should be able to end the game. And especially with Diablo still circling around and zoning the opposing team.
Yeah,
well
man.
played. It looked really good for Djibouti too in the mid game. Actually, that's
was a moment.
actually no in the mid to late, right when we got a little bit towards the later stage when they were able to bait some of these resources from Dexter. They almost pulled a full comeback off. Heck, I think if they got the turret up top and they left instantly, if they didn't overextend, that might have been a game that Djibouti would have won, right? Because they have the far lane, the Lord spawn in that bottom side of the map as well, so they would have been able to utilize that wave in the top lane, constantly slow pushing to create a forced error up against Senegal so that they can actually take the Lord perhaps for free. But that's where Senegal kind of forced the issue as well. For Djibouti, they had a massive advantage, and that's why Senegal gambled on that team fight. They knew that they needed the team fight up top after the base turret had been taken down, but they also, despite them being placed in a very pressured spot, they stayed composed. That was really well played. The fact that they saved all their resources and adjusted so well to Dexter baiting out these resources.
It's honestly, at one point in that game, it could have been anybody's game. Like Djibouti actually
really
had a moment where, it looked like they would come back and they would take that game number one. But, I think overall it was just at least from the matches that we've casted from yesterday today, this seemed like the closest so far. I know we had a 20-minute game earlier.
Yeah.
This almost got there, but this was probably the most competitive, like, back and forth between the two, right? And it showed here exactly. And I had that, I kind of had that inclination, like, just in the draft alone, man, because it was something that when we looked at the draft, even though it was a little bit different in terms of like the way things were banned out or the way things that were picked up, it was more of an overall picture of the meta that we've seen in the past, right? Like things were there falling into place. Again, Harith was open, gets picked up because of the fact too that Lo Yi and Chip were banned out, right? So that's the thing, man. Like this is it's a good glimpse of meta mixed with the African flavor. You know what I mean? So it's I love to see it because this is to show too that, hey, they can actually pull this stuff off and make things work. And again, there were some mistakes here and there, but I want to personally just say that Pimp My World had a hell of a game on this Grok. If there was no Grok for here, the Nolan would not have worked for Killuane as well as it did.
It was a very, very good pick to end off the draft for them, right? With the Nolan as well. The combo was just amazing in the end. I think all the way from the early game, we saw that combo. The Guardian's barrier, sometimes without the barrier, but very definitely helped with the additional duration of the stun with that wild charge, but mainly wild charge fracture. That combo was disgusting. I think even with the power of nature very early on, I think it was Brun that got one shot technically. Technically not one shot because it was two abilities, but power of nature with the fracture early on. And I think these small victories they were able to accumulate in the early game really mounted up to become a mountain of a victory for them in that mid game. Because if it wasn't for a lot of these kills in the early game towards Brun, if it wasn't for them shutting down Brun so early in the game, that time journey would have been online much earlier in maybe the first turtle as well. That would have definitely helped them to take control of the game. And on the Esmeralda, that's what you're looking for. And as a jungler, right? Different from the XP. But as a jungler, you're looking to go for that snowball. Because if you enter the mid game with the Esmeralda and it's still equal or the enemy team has an edge, that's what we saw in the game, you actually lose a whole lot of power because of that dominance ice. And I think we definitely got to see that. He was so good in the early game, doing so much damage, so sustainable. It's unkillable. He was unkillable to a certain point. But then right as the dominance ice got built up, you saw that he suddenly became vulnerable and he had to wait for another set of items in his inventory to be completed before he could be a threat again. And we did also eventually get to see that, which is great. I love the fact that we got to see all the phases of this game, the early, the mid, and the late, and it played accordingly to what we expected because in the end, it doesn't matter. That damage output is just too disgusting. And we also did mention it in the draft. When you have such a diverse amount of damage output in your composition, like a Nolan burst down like that, and also a Harith in your composition, it's just so hard to itemize, right? And again, the main strength for the composition coming in from Djibouti, especially for that Esmeralda jungle, is the sustainability. You need to be able to sustain in these team fights, and you need to be able to force these prolonged team fights. And he wasn't able to do that. If he built for the Harith, the Nolan would melt him down. If he built for the Nolan, then the Harith would do the same thing. And it was also really hard for Shanks. Shanks went for the anti-Cuirass. He went for the, physical defense for the Nolan and the Yuzai. It makes more sense. There's more physical damage on you, but then the Harith gets you. And he had to go for the Sea Halberd. So that was a game where it's just really tough to itemize. And props to Shanks for going for the Sea Halberd too, because there was the right amount of utility there. But I think for that game in particular, it was also really tough. You could obviously just try to nitpick and say that maybe Shanks should have gone for the attack speed build, the hyper carry build to do more damage and maybe play in the back. But even then, he would lack so much mobility. And that chase from Senegal was no joke. They could chase all the way. So if he didn't have a Windtalker, if he didn't have this, the movement speed build, it would have been really, really tough for him. So yeah, I think Senegal just played it really, really well. They had a very, very good draft too that to support their execution.
It's like, again, going back to what we said in the first match of the day, where it's so apparent that they improved so much, like in different aspects of the game from yesterday. And I think this solidifies that idea, because we were kind of wondering that from the first match, and then when we had that interview and we heard, the answer was like, from Pimp My World, it was like, it was just the team that we played. But then this is a very competitive match, and I feel like again, it was showing how even in a pressurous moment, they did so well, right? They did so well in the defense.
They really did.
They responded so well to things turning over. Because how many times, Miracle, have we seen teams, even some of the best in the world, where once they get this, they're massively leading, and then something goes disastrous, and the table gets flipped, right? And they collapse. But this time around, like I say, for Senegal, when that did happen, there was a glimpse of that. They were able to stay in the game. They defended really well. They turned things back in their favor, and they made smart decisions. You know what I mean? So that is something that's very apparent. And again, if for some of the viewers, I know there's, you guys watching here, this might be new for some of you guys. Look at yesterday if you get a chance. Like if you guys are looking for more MLBB to watch, check out the games yesterday, because you'll see what me and Mirko are really talking about here, and how things kind of have really stepped up just from 24-hour difference, really. And not only that too, but just getting a glimpse of what can happen here when things fall into place and you have that variety of damage like Mirko mentioned, especially in the draft. That's always... I know it's such an easy thing to say, like, the draft wins a game. Like, you starts with the draft. Everybody says, like, oh, yeah, it starts in the draft. It does, because that's obviously where we go before we jump into the game, right? And when you look at the banning patterns and the picking patterns, it is going to be something a little bit different than maybe some of you guys that have been watching so much MLBB. But I'll tell you what, man, the teams here from the Africa Regionals, they know what they want to play. They know how to play it very well. And, that's what we love to see here, because even this Nolan from Kilwin was a little bit different, the way that he utilized it around the map than what we're used to seeing. And again, I'll still say it, like if it wasn't a Grok, then it probably wouldn't have worked so well.
Agreed.
And, even the fact that I'm still surprised that they were able to get such power picks like the Angelo with the Yuzhong. And remember, like the Yuzhong struggled in the early game. And this could actually be traded as we get ready for game 2. Like maybe Dexter is the one to grab it this time around as they trade in the lane. So we're jumping in the draft for game 2. Let's see how it unfolds here, especially with the bans. Like how the bans, maybe they change from game 1 to game 2.
I'm glad you brought that up, right? Because I think it's the Yuzhong, that's number 1 for sure, but also letting go of the Harith. The Yuzhong, we expected coming into this matchup that it will be probably the most contested pick, because both of them found a lot of success in their victories. For Djibouti was yesterday against Ivory Coast. Dexter played the Yuzhong in game number 1 and then had his Yuzhong banned in game number 2 in the second phase. Meanwhile, coming in just today, we saw how good Diablo was on the Yuzhong, and we got to see it again earlier. He did the dirty work in the first match, up against Mali. He had to be the one to engage. He had to be the one to bait all the resources, but in the previous game, we definitely got to see that carry version of the Yuzhong that he displayed yesterday. But now, Harith was about to go after the Yuzhong to talk about the Harith. We didn't even mention the Harith a lot before the draft of game number 1 because we expected the Harith to automatically be banned out. We expect the Harith to be automatically respected. This hero is ridiculous right now. So much mobility, so much damage, so much sustain. And yes, you can go through the shielding with the Esmeralda, but the Esmeralda is a very, I think, one-dimensional way to go up against the Harith, right? And I think they figured that out the hard way. It was great against the Angela Harith, don't get me wrong though, by the way, right? It could have worked, but the execution needed to be perfect, and they weren't able to find that. Barats, though, going to be the first pick coming into this game. Chip has been left open, and rightfully so. Senegal have never picked this up, even when it's up for grabs, so I think this is a great move by Djibouti. They're basically forcing them to pick a hero that they are not comfortable on, or forced to give it over to Djibouti with already a Barats. If they go Barats, Roger, and then Chip, or if they add some more pressure with the Yu Zhong, if it's not open, if the Senegal don't decide to pick it up here with the Chip, oh, that's a nasty composition for Djibouti.
Yeah, it would be. And I think that's what they're trying to decide again, like how, you know, what do they go for that just to comfort? Do they pick up the Yu Zhong this time around? Whoa. Nathan's already locked in, so this has to, it's not.
Okay.
It's the X-Borg. And that's the answer to, hey, go ahead and pick up the Yu Zhong.
And the Chip, technically. You could go for the Chip and the Yu Zhong. I was just talking about it earlier, how this composition would be disgusting, especially up against a composition like this. Because X-Borg, he does really well against the Barats. I think the X-Borg pick is great. The Natan, however, if this actually does become a Chip and a Yu Zhong, he is not going to have a good time in the lane or in the game. As long as the Chip can use, you know, the teleports all around and use the shortcut to bring these members over and force that fast pace, it's going to be great. But they decide to go for a different route. That's a Dairoth that will go. It's still flex, both the Barats and the Dairoth. We saw Swag Boy just yesterday playing in the jungle, but the Chip comes through. So that's just another version of how they can utilize this Chip without the Yu Zhong. It's the Dairoth. It's the instant jump and an execute. An insta-kill button in the early game, especially up against that Natan. So they need a lot of peel. Minotaur has been left open. Fair Miss is a better answer with the additional HP. You can get him out of that sticky situation. So I think they should ban the Valentina out. I definitely think they need to take that away. The possibility of the Netherrealm being stolen and used by Team Djibouti.
Okay, so, you know, I'm wondering too, the fact that this time around we are going to possibly see the different utilization of a Dairoth, you know, not in the hands of Swag Boy. It could actually still be flex, like that is something that could happen. I just don't know if it will for this one. And with that, again, when I look at this and Chip comes into play, like you've talked about already some of the points here, it's still like the value of it is very similar to the Louis Yi, the way they can move around the map. And I'm wondering exactly how they want to play around this, because something that can happen, again, with a Dairoth locked in, we know there's a ton of burst potential, especially when you land that right Abysm strike. You're able to kind of roll with that, the way that it kind of breaks some of that armor and allows some of that penetration to come through too. So this means that your gold lane option is actually going to shine just by having a Dairoth on par, right? Like on part of this composition. And so you can kind of play around that already. It's just part of that too is if he actually rolls with a Petrify, man, and this is just a Petrify Dairoth, it's almost like it's scarier in terms of like dealing with a Yu Zhong, who, you know, here comes a Dragon Form, who's most likely going to be a Petrify. Now with the Dairoth having that Petrify, you have to be a lot more proactive in dealing with that setup potential into the Abysm strike. And I think that's why, you know, it's so crucial that there are some of these, of course, the Purifies available to deal with for Senegal. But let's see how the rest of this goes out. Second phase of bans already taken out. Good, smart bans, by the way. Of course, you know, this time Pimp My World is not going to get that Grok this time. And they also take out the Minotaur here.
Minotaur would have been great, you know, to try to counter engage against the Chip, against this composition that wants to dive, that wants to, purely just dive. I would just say that. So the Grok as well, great stopper, but they already have the Faramis, and that's another good answer, right? They get rid of the Grok and the Minotaur, but the Carmilla has been an amazing pick up against the Chip. I like the fact that you also mentioned that, you know, for right now, the Dairoth and the Barats, technically it's still very, very good flex. You could still use the Petrify. It'll give you a more reliable way to actually initiate and get and land the Abysm strike. But also, I think this X-Borg is deceiving right now. Because it can be used in the XP, it can also be used in the jungle. We did see that actually in the Philippines too, right? I believe it was Carl Teasy who used it in the jungle first. And it was great up against the Barat. So they can move this, they can flex this accordingly. If the Dairoth does go to the jungle, then maybe the X-Borg will be placed into the XP so they can bully the Barats. But if the X-Borg goes... Or sorry, if the Barats goes to the jungle, then the X-Borg can just be flexed into the jungle. So they can constantly just be playing with that. And if they do want to pick up an XP laner right now, I think the safe choice would be a Terizla. They need someone tanky. They need someone to be able to hold the front and maybe dive into the Xavier and the Clint holding their ground so that, you know, the front to back could actually work. But if they want more, if they want to go crazier, they could go for the signature. Kiluane. If you guys don't know, all the way from yesterday, this Hanzo has been banned out from him. No, come on, man. Kiluane. Don't do it, man. Come on, man. You gotta... Kiluane.
Come on.
Intrusive thoughts win. For once.
We know there's a stream
gotta let it win.
But come on.
Please, Kiluane. We saw the Akai already. We haven't seen the Hanzo.
We saw him already.
Oh, it doesn't seem like he's gonna go for the Hanzo. I think there's a bit too much dive with the chip and with the Dairoth too. They're gonna go with the Akai. Right? It's a safer choice, but I would have loved to see that, man. I would have loved to see the Hanzo.
Another day,
we were so close to seeing it. Nice, so
they know what they're doing, by the way.
They definitely know what they're doing, though. I mean, this is good disengage. You know, you have a lot of dive, and this time no diggy to actually go through that heavy spin. So it's great. It's a great composition to play and kite away with that Natan too. And the X-Borg. Remember, if they do get to the mid to late game, by the way, this is a disgusting composition. And technically, it's the gamble that Djibouti are playing. They need to get the snowball very, very early in the game. But they also have the Xavier. So even if it does get to a very late stage, even if, let's say, Senegal win in the early game, they can actually defend quite a bit. They have very, very good wave clear. It's Clint and Xavier. As long as those two don't get shut down real hard in the early game, they should still be able to fight and push it to late.
And you know, the thing is like, I don't know, Clint just hasn't been able to do much so far throughout the qualifiers. So
0%
something
rate?
Yeah, I think it's 0.
Yeah,
I think it has not won yet. So again, part of the work here is to allow, you know, that gold lane experience to happen for this Clint, for it to get the farm that it needs, because that's what we need to happen for Nightcrawler here.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, let's see if Senegal can qualify to the next stage with this game, or will Djibouti force the first full series from the African regional qualifiers, at least for the games that have been streamed here. Seems in the start of the game, it will be both junglers starting on the purple buff, rotating towards the opposite side of the map. And yeah, there's a swap. Swag Boy, he did well on the Dairoth just yesterday. Nightcrawler 2, moving into the gold lane. So
it's like a major swap, dude.
And we've been seeing this actually around the African regional qualifiers, right? A lot of players, a lot of teams have just been rotating lineups, and in a way it could be good. It could be a curveball. Maybe they could be, you know, very comfortable on these picks, and I think for Swag Boy especially it makes sense. But Shanks, him not on the marksman, especially after seeing him, you know, in 4 total games, it's kind of weird to see him on a mage. Let's see if he can actually pop off on the Xavier. But up top, this lane, it should be on paper really good for Swag Boy, because he should be able to get rid of the Faraga armor. But I'm really curious to see what Diablo has in his emblems, because he's so tanky.
Oh yeah, he's gonna get poked down here pretty good too. And you know, like the whole role swap could also just be like, hey, you know, these are comfort. Let's just go with it. Let's see if it works, and kind of play around that. Again, still solid lineup, especially for Senegal. I like what they have, because late game potential, like when we talk about scaling, and if we get to the point where previous game it was 18+ minutes. Nathan is scary. Gunk is going to be scary. Like, he's going to be there, right? So that's something they have to watch out for. Again, looks like there's going to be a possible play up here on top. Heavy spin already going to be used. This is tough to see for Brun as he's taken down. And interestingly, that he would actually start that with just him there. And again, it's an X-Borg. I mean, you're most likely not going to get the kill there.
Man, and now I don't think Dexter can even contest this, right? I don't think he can even like maneuver into it. Despite Kiluane already using a heavy spin, but I may be wrong.
Whoa! Yep, Dexter somehow, some way able to get it, and now they're going to go for the fight. NetherRealm going to be used as well, but they are going to be able to get away the best they can. But Swagboy gets a kill on top, and it's the Dyroth once again. Mystic Field going to come into the Daytona's welcome into the wall. They get the stun. Flicker, though, going to be used. It's Dexter that gets punished.
Wow, what a series of events there happening, and even in the bottom lane, wow. Gunk doing a whole lot of damage. Gotta be careful, though.
Young Nightcrawler gonna flicker in. He's not able to get the kill just yet. A couple. What? Oh, 1 versus 1. They both fall.
Wow, what a 1v1 in the bottom lane, and then another up top as Diablo
that
tries his
one-shot
best
way, right?
to stop this proxy. But look at this, nice Subran.
Oh, Diablo, 1 versus 2 goes in. Diablo. Shortcut could be used too under the turret. Just in time, Heavy Spin gonna find the lockdown for a second. He goes back though, through the portal, through the shortcut, still gonna find it out. Yakuza is gonna be the next target. Dawning Light will find it. Whoa, Shanks able to get the kill, still going under the turret again. Shanks goes down, Brunda follows. Swagboy could be next. He gets stunned, he has the damage, but won't be able to get the kill. What is happening? There's so much back and forth.
Chaos, man, absolute chaos. And man, that Heavy Spin interaction with the shortcut was absolutely unfortunate, right? Because I get the idea. He was trying to just pin him down under the turret, but he got pinned down next to the portal. So he kind of saved Dexter. He got teleported back to where he came from with that portal. That was a fun interaction, man. Definitely a new interaction that I have just figured out myself as well. I've just seen myself in a competitive stage. But let's take a look at the items here. Steel Leg Plates Rush, and also the Dreadnought Armor Rush for Diablo there with the Warrior Boots too. So a lot of defensive maneuvers already being done by Diablo. I think at this point though, hold up, Swagboy.
Is he gonna go into Dawning Light into the Abysm Strike? A little overkill, but they wanted to get Pimp My World down, and that's what they did. Now gonna be finding it out once again. Turtle for the taking. Keeping Yakuza in the mid lane. Blast Insanity going to be used. Dexter's still able to get it though. They might re-engage. Daytona's welcome. Not going to be able to find the mark, but they're going to chase him down. Diablo on the run with Killer Wayne. Swagboy jumps in. Couple hits. He'll get the kill. Curse of Blood going to be dropped. They have to fight it out. Still under it all. Under Dawning Light. It finds Yakuza. He's going to be the one to fall next. And man, Djibouti comes out swinging again.
Great force by Djibouti. They need to get the early game rolling for themselves. They need that snowball. We were talking about it in the drafts, and now it happens, right? For Senegal, they're actually okay with just handling this. There's no shortcut, so an interesting flicker definitely by Brun there. I think it was he did a good job though. He baited out the Purify. So, you know, all in all, it actually ends up with a good trade. It's a Purify of the gold laner for the flicker of the roamer. But yeah, going back to my point, for Senegal, they're going to be very, very happy just trading equally. And right now, they're actually not that far behind, right? And remember, they have an Natan, they have an X-Borg, they have layers of HP that they can utilize in the later stage of the game, and obviously Kilowane to disengage in these skirmishes if Djibouti tries to force it upon them. But for Djibouti, now it gets to a point of the game where they really need to push a pace. They need to do what Senegal did to them in game number 1. They need to try to look for as many chaotic fights as they can, but they need to be very careful because if they engage, let's say to Gunked, and Pimp My World somehow is able to stay out of vision and then re-engage with the chip bringing 5 members into a Curse of Blood, that could be disastrous. If Senegal get their hands on a lead at this point, at the 6-minute mark, it might just completely shut down the possibility of a Djibouti snowball. And that's what they're doing, the bottom lane. But they're not able to find it. It's a flicker burnt out though for Nightcrawler, so good information for Senegal. They might be able to go for a dive later on. But Dexter rotates down below, wants to relieve that pressure. They're both setting up for the neutral objective. For Senegal, safe route would be to not contest this. They have the Natan scaling at a very good pace. If they force Gunk to fight for this, it's a gamble. It's 50-50. And if they lose, the snowball might be ready for Djibouti.
Oh, it looks like they actually want to. Brun, they're going to keep them there at bay, but Killwayne able to get it with the Retribution. Now they're going to fight it out. Gunk unleashing the damage. Dawning Light going to find multiple members. Heavy Spin falls into it, into the Mystic Field. Dexter's the one to fall. Nobody down for Senegal, plus the Turtle. Mirko, you were just talking about this. If they somehow pull through at this point in the game, it's going to be troublesome to stop them. And now Nightcrawler once again left to his own to defend, and now in the mid lane, they're trying to find it out once again. Swag Boy able to survive. Diablo was there. It looks like he used the last Insanity Turret, gonna go down. Gunk gets taken down by Nightcrawler. Meanwhile, Swag will fall in the mid lane. Shanks looks like he's gonna follow, gets thrown down by the flames. And man, still back and forth between both, but Senegal pulls out through.
After game one, did we really expect a slow game? We expected this. We expected the brawls to happen, the skirmishes to happen all across the map, and it's happening even more here. But like you already hinted at again, this is bad for Djibouti. This is real bad for Djibouti. Because even though it seems like they're still able to get trades here and there, this is definitely not what their composition wants at this point of the game.
Oh. They want to fight this one once again. Conceal going to be used. Shortcut there. Here comes the cavalry. Daytona's welcome to go through. Swag Boy to fall, all fighting under the turret once again. Curse of Blood, Dawning Light will follow up. No one dropping just yet, but Pimp My World finally goes down. Bruin going to be next. Shadow Stampede. Yakuza can't get away from Dexter. He gets the shutdown, the triple. Still going to be looking for more. Does he get Kilowayne? He gets the Maniac. Dexter is massive on the Bears before he falls himself.
But at this point, I'm really struggling to find like a way to really explain if that trade was worth it for Djibouti, because yes, they did get, 4 members taken down. Yakuza was able to spawn almost instantly because of the passive, but again, Senegal, the fact that they were able to somehow also kind of like hold their own, that wasn't too bad for a 4v5, by the way, right? Djibouti had 5 members across there. So Senegal are slowly but surely scaling, and Gunk was given so much space to free farm in the mid lane. Heck, he even got a tier 2. So they're going to have so much more ways to pressure Djibouti in the 9th minute of the game. Oh, in the bottom lane, Swag Boy.
Oh, Swag Boy just gets obliterated this time around. And meanwhile, in the top lane, Nightcrawler in trouble too. That's 2 down for Djibouti. So now still going to be working on it. They're looking for more. Brun to follow. And this is clear sign for Senegal to take this Lord. Dexter, I'm not sure if he can pull out a miracle. It might be too late. No. And they're going to call it off here. Once again, Dawning Light not up in time to try to possibly steal the Lord. But man, Senegal will find win after win.
Despite all their attempts in the early game to shut this Natan down, to make it as chaotic as possible, to stop the scaling from Natan to happen, it's not effective, not yet at least. And I think it might be too late for them to actually try to shut this Natan down. He has a Holy Crystal at the 9th minute of the game. It was 9th minute earlier when he secured it. Now it's 10, but we've always been talking about how the Natan needs the Holy Crystal. And usually the timing for the Holy Crystal is 11 to 12 minutes if it's a normal lane, if you don't get a lot of kills, if you don't get a lot of assists, if you don't get free farm, just normal farm, right? If you were equal. The fact that the Natan was behind for some time and he's still able to get the Holy Crystal, Djibouti, their front lines won't even be able to tank up the entropy damage coming in from Gunk. But look at Swag Boy, look at Swag Boy!
Oh, what? And also Swag Boy's gonna go down. And that's what we're talking about with Gunk. Dawning Light gonna drop. Still working on this in the mid lane, trying to keep it together on the defense. And they will keep them at bay for now. Also worked on the Lord, and they just had lost Swag Boy. So as things fall into place, they still have to deal with these waves that are going to be pushing in. Conceal already going to be used by Pimp My World. They want the tier 2 turrets. They want to be knocking on the base of Djibouti. And it looks like Senegal will be happy with that for now.
They're more than happy, Naisu. They're ecstatic at this point, right? They got a win. 1v1 for the Natan up against Dairoth. That's the guy you sent to try to take Gunk down, and he failed. He got out-damaged. Gunk was able to purify out of the Petrify as well, so the insta-kill button that we were talking about, how maybe they would be able to find extra value with the Petrify is not working out, and they have him sandwiched.
Okay. Brun is there. Could drop the shortcut if he wants to. They actually forced this fight. Looks like the rest of the team is going to come crashing down to the bottom side, but they know everybody's pretty much there. They call it off for now. Gunk also just picking up the Divine Glaive. So now he's Yakuza as well picks up his own Divine Glaive. So damage department online here. And for Senegal, it's really how do they want to approach it? They still have to respect the fact that if they try to force into the base, they could get shut down. And that's what they have to kind of be cautious about here. especially with the fact that when you're trying to assault the base without a Lord, it's a little bit tougher, especially with the lineup that they have. There isn't really a major hero there that can actually just force a fight through the wall. Yes, you could technically jump in with Killuane, have the heavy spin available, maybe get a drag off with Yakuza. But really for now, it's just wait for this objective. It's going to be up in less than 10 seconds. You can secure that and then get ready for the push.
And we're in the territory of Senegal right now. This is the 12th minute of the game where the X-Borg is fully online, where Gunked, he should be online actually more towards the 13-14 minute of the game. Last Insanity. Defensively.
Insanity going to be used. Yep. Still has the immortality. So it looks like it's just going to be objective taken.
Well played, man, to Senegal. And also there you go, Sky Garden helmet for Killuane. We were expecting that Hanzo pick to maybe come out, and so far this game he's been popping off on the Akai, so he made the right choice most definitely. But maybe, you know, nice, he would have been able to do this as well. 615 on the Hanzo, who knows? But I think, you know, I would love to see the items at this point of the game, right? At the 13th minute of the game, I would love to see what Djibouti has to try to counter the Natan, and they don't have much. That's the truth. They have a Radiant armor, and it seems for the chip, he's building towards an Athena shield, and that's definitely not going to be enough. They have, oh man, and Natan has a Divine Glaive and a Holy Crystal. They don't have nearly as much magical defense to actually hold them back. Natan will shred through everyone. He'll basically be doing true damage, as we've been saying throughout the day, throughout the African regional qualifiers. Last Insanity!
Last Insanity going to be used, pushing him back, gets the flicker out from Shanks. He's going to have to drop it down. Turret's going to fall, and now Diablo taking the brunt of damage, still has the immortality. Base is going to be worked on. There's nothing they can do, and Senegal will sweep the series against Djibouti and qualify for AEC over in Casablanca, Morocco.
GG, well played. Senegal qualify, but Djibouti, they get knocked down and will have to go up against the loser of the other match. Man, it's going to be absolutely insane right now, man. Looking at Djibouti, their run. Nigeria versus Mali. Would love to know later on the results of that match and who will able... We do?
We got the results. Yeah, Nigeria won.
So Mali won. Okay. Yeah, Mali Nigeria will be going up against Djibouti for that last chance qualifier, the grueling last chance qualifier to Casablanca for AEC 24. And there you go, Nigeria. Shout outs to Naisu. Thank you for the information, brother. I did not know that just yet.
I just saw it as well.
Exactly. I mean, if you guys want to know how Naisu got it instantly, IESF.gg. Just open up that website quick now. Open it up. And you will be able to find that information ASAP. I have it opened it up now, and yeah, I can see it as well. There you go. So that's how you got it so fast, bro.
You know, we just multitasking, my dude, on the one monitor. You should have the advantage, by the way. You got the two monitors, man.
I'm too busy looking at the live chat. You know, I mean, the live chat's been great, by the way. Shout out to
love you guys in the chat.
We love you guys. You know, the viewers watching here, even a lot of the Asian viewers watching, and currently it's like 4 a.m.
Like 4 a.m. here, yeah.
And they're still supporting. But shout out to the African viewers as well, man, because I see a lot of support for both these countries, especially I actually see a lot of Nigerian flags in the comment section, so they knew the result as well, it seems. But let's take a look at the highlights of game number 1, game number 2, and it starts with game number 1, where Senegal, I think this was what we were talking about, the crazy one-shot potential, well, technically two-shot potential of this composition, the wild the Grok with the power of nature plus that fracture. And it looked really good actually for Djibouti, because for Dexter at least, he was able to win out in the lane up against Diablo, and then later on he was also able to pick up a kill with that advantage that he got against Diablo onto Killuane. But unfortunately, he wasn't able to really keep that lead. And Diablo, when he got that kill back, he started to completely dominate up top, and the timing was always really just great for him. Every single time there was always a better rotation for the side of Senegal. The team just felt like they were more in sync. They were also able to go for a lot of these crazy dives that finally Djibouti were able to retaliate with. This was a great counter play, by the way, because Senegal definitely overextended. Even though they have the hard guard, they're not invincible, especially in the early game, still in the 4th minute of the game, where they're very vulnerable to Swag Boy, who can just go through the shielding from Senegal. But for Djibouti, they got that, you know, comeback technically in the early game. They tried to utilize this lead, and they were able to continue this. Oh, again, this was a great wild charge to set up for the neutral objective take for Killuane. And I think throughout game number 1, it was just crazy skirmishes happening left and right.
Yeah.
Both teams really relying on their micro to handle this because there were a lot of like individual duels happening. Shanks going up against Killer Wayne, Diablo up against Dexter, and we were talking about how the Esmeralda jungle could really work. It was a great pick up against 2 shields with the Angela and the Harith, but unfortunately it does lose a lot of its value in the 8th minute, 7th minute, you know, I think around 6th minute, whenever the Dominance Ice gets built up. It really depends, right? If you rush it, it's even earlier than that, and that's what we saw for Swag Boy. He wasn't really able to just walk up forward and deal as much damage as he did in the first 5 minutes of the game, where he really could just go in without a care in the world as to what damage can get to him, because really at that point, no damage can get to him. He can deal all the damage in the world, go through the shielding, and he can take a whole lot of that punishment too. And that's what he was able to utilize here as well in the 8th minute, when they were actually split up, when they've already used their resources. This is where Swag Boy can come in and clean up again. And in towards the later stage of the game, you will see that more often from Swag Boy for Djibouti as well, because they finally adjusted to that. I think it was Dexter who figured out that, you know, he needs to be the front line. He needs to do a lot of the dirty work. He needs to be the one to initiate, to bait out these resources. But I think they really, you know, died a bit too many times in the 8th minute as well, especially after getting Kill Away. You would expect them to go back into the jungle, maybe utilize that advantage that they get and get the XP, the gold that they need to actually get Swag Boy to a point where he can snowball. Unfortunately, that didn't happen for the most part in that mid game, and the Harith even was able to outdamage Swag Boy with the help of that anti-regen. I think it was from Yakuza, and Shanks was really struggling in game 1.
Yeah,
I don't think he was able to really like go through any of the shielding, any of the sustain. Definitely. And he actually, in the end, was able to get the Sea Halberd, but I think it was a bit too late, right? And he went for the Windtalker build. It's a bit more like of a utility of mobility over pure damage, not the Hyper Gary build that we were talking about for, I think it was the second match of the day, where we did see Malekith, use the Hyper Carry build. So very, very good ways. But this is the example that we were talking about for Djibouti. How they win in these skirmishes is if they utilize Dexter to bait out all the resources, and then Swag Boy can come in, look for the cleanup with Shanks. But Shanks obviously has to come in as the executor. They tried to utilize this Lord, and they were able to get a base turret, but then they overextended for sure. I think if they got the base turret and then they really just forced themselves to recall, to go back, right after this, right? I think they need to sacrifice Dexter here. That would have been a great way to actually utilize that for the Lord that was going to be spawning in the bottom lane as well. So incredible value for them if they had recalled and backed away. But I guess it was a good move by Senegal too, to be able to force that skirmish on them. Great Eternal Guard, great Furious Dive and Petrify, as you guys saw from Diablo there, to stop them from recalling and to punish them from overextending. And then with that lead that they got, they just constantly were able to push the pace, getting the Evolved Lord and ultimately ending it just by utilizing the sustain in their kit and the damage reduction. Disgusting sustain plus damage reduction of that Evolved Lord. 19-minute game as well. It's a big Evolved Lord. It's a big boy. It ain't just that 18-minute Evolved Lord. They were able to just take the game right here with Gunked, focusing the turret down. And then in game number 2, we saw a little bit of a difference, Naisu, where it was kind of the opposite. Djibouti had the early game control. Djibouti had to make the snowball happen in the early game, and they kind of did at one point, but then Senegal were able to basically gamble out of that situation. They forced the fight around the second turtle, and that's what got them the win. But we got to give props to Dexter, because this was a lane swap, by the way. Actually, not lane swap, a role swap, by the way, for Djibouti. Dexter was the XP in game number 1. He swapped with Swag Boy, and even Shanks swapped with Nightcrawler. So mid and gold also swapped. Yet Dexter was able to out-retry Kill Away in the first 2 turtles. Despite him being on the Barats, by the way, against the Akayan, despite him having despite Senegal having the advantage after taking Swag Boy very, very low at the start and actually already taking down Brun. Then we had a few of these solo kills that was unfortunate, man. On the Clint, you would want to get a shot down earlier there, and definitely that equal trade was more valuable for Gunked, because then both of them would be scaling at the same level, and then the skirmishes continued to happen. This was that very, very fun interaction from Kill Away, pinning the Barats down into the shortcut, so it got him back out to where he came from. But yeah, a lot of brawls, a lot of overextension from Djibouti. It's very similar to game number 1, but it just happened way earlier, the overextension. And when they aren't able to utilize that snowball in the early game, Senegal just gets so much more to play with. And that's what we get to see. This was the gamble that they played with. It was already equal here, so technically for Senegal, they didn't even need to take this gamble. But the fact that they did and they won, this was the nail in the coffin for me. This was the moment where it was just all downhill for Djibouti. This was the turn that really gave Senegal the momentum.
Man, you called that, by the way. Like when you were leading into that, you're like, if they get this at this point in the game where it was like 6.5 minutes, 7 minutes in, that's where the scaling, the snowball momentum was going to start. And that's pretty much what happened, because right after that, they make this play up here. It's a good team fight, though, from Djibouti. This was actually also, they were still hanging in there. And this is where you have that trade where it's actually a maniac for Dexter, but look what's happening in the mid lane, right? Like Gunk, this was his job for the majority of this game number 2, where it was like, he's just doing his thing, man. He's just farming up, doing his thing, getting the items that he needs, so that eventually, he is the one that's just, look at this. This is where he started popping off. They find the moments where Swag Boy's trying to make something happen. And, even at this point, he only had like Feather of Heaven. He only had the Starlium Scythe. He was working on that Holy Crystal, but he was already like pumping out damage. And that was the problem with a lot of this for Djibouti at some point, where they just couldn't withstand that amount of damage coming through. And then eventually, they get to the point of the base. This was a great last insanity initiation, of course, from Diablo to force them back and really just start that. And that's why Xborg's so great, because then you even have your armor, your immortality, and this is what caps it out to win them the game, the series, and solidify their spot over in Casablanca.
Especially because he went for the Ice Queen Wand's second item, right? So I want to give a massive shout out, by the way, to Diablo, because that itemization was amazing. Went for the Dreadnought armor and then the Immortality second, and then straight into the Ice Queen Wand. So kind of a full utility build. But, ladies and gentlemen, we do have the victors of that match. Killer Wayne, we're going to invite him to the call right now to get interviewed by us. What's up, Killer Wayne? How are you doing after that win? How are you feeling after qualifying?
I'm good. We're feeling really good. We're feeling liberated. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for having me.
Hey man, I've got to ask you the first question here, because I already have it prepared ever since you were hovering over the Hanzo. All right, bro. Like I think the whole African qualifier so far, from what we've seen, the Hanzo has always been respected. It was banned out by Tunisia as well. It was banned out earlier in your first match against Mali, and for the first time it was left open earlier, and you were hovering over it. Did you want to take it, and what made you stop from what stopped you from taking it?
So, as you saw, I was about to take it, but we took our time to think about it, and we wanted to take the risk to show up the Enzo, just like to show the Enzo, but we thought that it would be better to play another hero. According to this lineup, it would be better. But we were tempted. We were very tempted to get the Enzo.
I definitely saw that, man. I was also very excited to see it as well. But I guess at least I wanna have you promise something, right? You've already qualified to Casablanca. Please tell me that we will see it in Casablanca.
You'll see it in Casablanca. You'll see it.
Great, awesome.
That's our request, Killaway. Because we've been hoping for it, man. And so a next question for you, Killaway. Since you guys have qualified, right now, you can focus on, of course, AEC ahead of you guys. How do you prepare for that? Because of course, your daily lives over here are very different, for even Southeast Asian MLBB players. This is something that we always talk about. So when you've qualified for the next big step, how do you as a team prepare for that? Like, how do you guys schedule your days and prepare for this next step of the tournament?
Okay, great question. So firstly, I'll talk about this one. How do you prepare for this one? So, as you know, we are all students in the team. All 5 of us are students, so we have busy days. So the last months we were training all night to get ready for this tournament. But now we are almost all on holidays, so we'll be together in Senegal. and playing together, physically together, and training every day. I think we're gonna play every day and intensely to prepare for the Morocco tournament. So it's gonna be tough, but we're gonna do it.
Definitely
Awesome.
excited
Are you
for
guys
that.
all in college? Like, is it college
Yes,
level? Is that
yes.
okay?
Fourth
Wow.
year, fifth year,
Respect, man.
we're almost done, but we're all in college.
Yeah, I
Awesome.
mean,
Awesome. That's great to hear.
that was great, man. I mean, the fact that you guys can balance all that, and all the practice, and then obviously qualifying. But I do want to ask you a question. Now that you have qualified to Casablanca, is there a
Yeah.
particular team that you want to go up against? Right? I mean, let's make it spicy here. Do you know the list of teams that have qualified already? Uh, it's Morocco, Egypt, Tunisia, and we
Yeah.
also have South Africa, Madagascar, and now with Nigeria, and you just winning earlier, Senegal. Do you
Yes.
have, like, I mean, from all of the countries that I mentioned, which one do you want to face off the most, like later on in AEC?
I would say like Northern Africa teams like Egypt or Morocco because they
Mm.
have a real advanced level on Mobile Legends. They have a big community, so it would be a very big challenge to play against them. So I would say them, Morocco or Egypt. It would be great.
That's great, man. I mean, thank you so much, Kilwani, for this interview, man. Congrats on the win again.
Thank
From me
you,
and
thank
Naisu,
to you.
good luck. Hope to see you
See
in
you soon.
AEC, and we hope to see your
Yeah.
improvement as well.
Yeah,
Goodbye, man. Thank you.
yeah.
Thank
See
you.
you soon. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, Kuloin.
It's a pleasure. Again, Naisu, every single time. I'm so pumped up for these interviews. Every single
Yep.
time. They never fail to deliver, right? We had two members of Senegal actually today. We had Pip My World just earlier and then Killuane, and both of them are
Yeah.
equally well spoken, bro.
Dude, that's crazy.
Man,
I mean, they're students. Like,
they're
you know what I mean?
students.
Like, and I heard stories of this, like, talking to some of the North American players, that are now obviously competing in our upcoming tournaments and stuff. And that's true. Like, to hear the struggle of trying to balance, like, especially academics,
For sure, dude.
and then at the same time try to line up a schedule with your 4 other members who are also trying to balance different, courses and academics, and then try to get the game time in to practice.
Yeah.
Like, that is so difficult. I think a lot of people don't
sure.
actually realize that, that are just watching. And then, to hear that, hey, they're actually going to be physically together now, not just like an online thing where they kind of arrange that. Since they're on holiday, they're going to go ahead and get to arrange, like, physically being together. I'm assuming like boot camp style, like what we're used to with our players out here, and then get prepped and ready for AEC. And who's their one on the board that they want to go against, and it's of course it's Egypt, a team that has multiple players with multiple experiences internationally. So it's great to hear, man, and I can't wait to see how well they do once they get to that point.
Absolutely. I'm glad you brought up that point, right? Of how to balance that work, or technically study / work life
Yeah.
with MLBB, because I actually could relate to that, right? I mean, I also was balancing that, and I had to choose one. For them,
Yeah.
they're still balancing that. So it's great to see how they're able to balance it and also qualify next. But for you guys back at home who are wondering if, that one final slot, who's going to represent Northern Africa here for that final spot? Because we have three slots technically before this match. Right now, Senegal and Nigeria have qualified. That means Mali and Djibouti will be going up against each other tomorrow, and we will know who will be able to qualify to, the last team to qualify